A few months back, after the Calling Utrecht, we sat down with the winner of that event, Sander, to chat Fi. Now that we're approaching the end of that meta, he has joined us once again to chat Fi and where he sits today. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, Flesh and Blood folks. Welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. We're joined once again by the glorious Sander Neeft. How's it going, my man?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me. I like being here again.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. We're doing this midweek. That's right, midweek. Trying to arrange stops on, or coordinate on different sides of the globe. But so, how's it been going? How's your Flesh and Blood? How's everything going?
Well, my Flesh and Blood life has been on a bit of a low side after Nationals for just a couple of weeks, to be honest. Like, it wasn't for a long period. But I had to take a small break, just getting burned out by all the tournaments. Not specifically in a negative way, but you just also have other hobbies, other things in life you want to take care of. So it was quite nice to just do a couple of weeks of something else. Went to like a board game convention in Germany, Spiel. Some players might know it. So, but then got back into FAP again. So I'm full looking into Worlds. I'm not going myself, but I have someone else who's going into Worlds and prepping and looking into the meta. So I'm helping him a little bit, and I'm just going through the current meta as a Fi player.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that's a great place to start for our conversation. So obviously brought you in with your experience on Fi. So you said you're not headed into Worlds, but you're up to speed on everything going around. Obviously, everything's been relatively quiet as everyone's sitting on their tech headed into Worlds. So let's chat. Where do you think Fi sits overall in the current meta?
So I think Fi is actually like a really strong place. I wasn't sure getting into Nationals. Internationals, I was just a bit scared of Oldhim. There were some Icelander lists that weren't doing well, but there was potential. And I was just scared that Fi couldn't hold up to them. Also, the Runeblades were still a problem, and I feel Runeblades is never a good matchup for Fi, even if you can get a 50-50 or maybe a 60-40 out of it. I don't believe you can feel too confident into those heroes. But now, actually, after Nationals and looking back at what happened with some Fi lists that popped up, I actually think he's like in a really good place. I actually think there are like multiple archetypes of Fi that are doing well right now. You have the Kadachi Fi with the more like value type thing going on. You have the full Draconic Burst Fi, just still running Mask of Momentum, also looking for a bit more value. And even last Battle Hardened, I think I saw a list running Pouncing Links most of the time and just trying to combo people. So I feel like there are 3 different archetypes that are actually doing pretty well. And they all have like pretty good matchups overall. So yeah, I think he's at a really strong place. I'm not sure if he's the best deck in the meta, but he's definitely in the top.
So what is the best deck in the meta then? That's interesting.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's Icelander. We saw Michael Hamilton take US Nets, of course. And I think that deck was really good. But I also think that it might get improved on as more people jump onto it. Not saying Michael Hamilton didn't make an insane deck, because the deck is really good. But I feel like even him himself was not done with the deck. I had that feeling. I'm not sure if it's true, but I had the feeling he had more to add to it. So I'm really curious what he's going to bring to Worlds and what he's going to do with it. I also see a lot of players getting better with playing Icelander. I think that also really adds to her quality. I feel when Icelander just released, people didn't really know what to do with her yet. Same with Dromai, actually. I feel like Dromai is also getting better over time, and that a lot of people are figuring her out better. Jamie Faulkner's list from the UK Nationals was like really strong. So I feel other decks are like getting there because they just need more figuring out than Fi needed, even though Fi has been changing over time as well.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're here to talk Fi, but let's chat Icelander for a bit, because she is I'm scared of her. I'm very scared of her. She's actually the reason I'm bringing Bravo this weekend, is because I just want a whole bunch of blues in my deck. So this new archetype that Michael Hamilton basically brought to the world that everyone's on right now, which is, throwing your big red physicals and then following up the next turn with your arcane wanings. Is there a metagame within the metagame there with actually teching D-reacts and stuff for that? So, like, is that, how does that cycle solve itself? Or do you think that it just has too much power? What are your thoughts?
I don't think it has too much power. I actually think, weirdly enough, that Fi is actually one of the decks that has a chance of beating it.
Mm-hmm.
I do think the Icelander deck is just really good into the Runeblades. I feel like it's doing well into the slower decks where it can just build up the Frost Hexes. And if it's going for value, it just does a really good job of getting value. But I'm not sure if the defense reaction route that you're talking about is actually an option of playing into it, because sometimes you have those defense reaction in hand and you can't use them because she's actually doing arcane damage or
Mm-hmm.
she's blocking you out, or I don't think you can really anticipate it. I do think there are, like, for aggressive decks, good reason to not run too much arcane barrier. I feel like you're getting more out of the armor points than out of the arcane barrier right now. So for me personally, when I run Fi into Iceland, I only run Tide Flippers. And that's more because I have sideboard space. Otherwise, I would just run Snapdragons as well. It's just nice to have the one arcane barrier. If you have one floating on your own turn and she deals arcane damage, that you're just like, oh well, I have this floating anyway. I might just as well pay one to have one life extra, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But normally, I would actually say just play the armor equipment for the aggressive decks. Don't go into like defense reactions. I feel the defense reactions just might get clunky, and even when they hit the right moment, all her attacks have value, but they don't really have on hit triggers or things to stop you. That's more on the other side of her deck, not on the attacks itself.
Mm-hmm.
So just blocking the wounded bull out, for example, doesn't really give you anything besides, well, having a block support from Sink Below, which of course is a good block value, but because you're not sure you can use it, I don't think that's a good answer. I don't think it's bad. I do think it might just, when it hits, it's value, right? Like when it hits, it's the value for 4, so that's good. But if it doesn't hit, it can just be a poor card in your deck. So I personally don't like going that route. I do think you just try to outvalue her. As a 5 player, I try to start my chains off with a 4 attack. Try to start off with a Ravenous Rebel. Try to start off with a Mounting Anger. I feel like she's a lot of trouble dealing with those, because then she can't fully outblock them. And you definitely get value even if she just stops your turn. So even if she uses something like a Channel Lake, you've already started with the 4 damage. So she already has to deal with it, and otherwise she will take a lot of damage to just counter the rest of your turn.
Mm-hmm.
So that's personally how I look into that matchup. Just try to start with something. That's also the reason I feel the Runeblades have a little bit more trouble into her. They normally want to start with a non-attack, and she can react to that and then just stop their turn before they can actually do anything. Of course, she won't always stop it. She might just do something small, but you never know, right? So you can't really play around it fully. Of course, you can predict it a little bit, but you don't know anything. You don't know everything of what she's going to play. So that's what I'm at playing into Icelander.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that Fi is one of the decks that can beat her, especially the decks that were running in the UK, the Peter Ward decks and stuff with the Kadachis. I'm not sure how the Draconic decks run into it. I do feel like it's a bit more of a problem since Emberblade's not that good in the matchup because of hypothermia. Also feel that it's rough because you start with a 3 attack, and as I just said, I like starting with a 4 just to put on the pressure right away before she can do anything. But I do think Fi has a chance in that matchup compared to a lot of other decks, and I feel like other decks actually have a lot of trouble into her, and I wouldn't be surprised if Icelander would win Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's really dependent on the amount of players bringing it. I'm not sure how many people will switch to it. I do know a lot of people like playing the new Icelander deck because of the mixed style. So you're doing the physical and the arcane. I know a lot of people like playing that type of game. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people switched. But I could also imagine just a lot of people staying on their old picks because, well, hey, it's the first Worlds. You've been playing a hero for a long time. Why would you switch now?
Sure. Yeah, and then to point out, right, when we're talking Worlds, we're obviously talking the Worlds tournament, but then you have the calling that weekend and then the Battle Hardened that same weekend. So you could very easily see the representation be very different in those. I mean, I think at Columbus, which was last weekend, Battle Hardened Columbus, it was 25% ish of the field was Icelander or something like that. Now, none of them ended up making top 8, but that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yes, that's a lot more than I expected. I hadn't seen the numbers yet. I'm quite surprised by that number.
Let me
I do think
check, then make sure. Oh, sorry, it wasn't 25%, it was 25
out
Icelanders.
of
They had 110, so it wasn't 25%.
oh, well, that's pretty close. Yeah,
Yeah. But
that's quite a lot of players.
yeah, well, I think
So that's how
110's the biggest battle hardened, I think. Don't hate me on that if I'm wrong, but I think that's
I'm
pretty
not
darn
sure.
close.
Yeah,
We've
it's
had
pretty
several
big.
around 100, but 110's pretty big.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel that Icelander is a hard deck to play, so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people weren't completely comfortable on the deck yet. So
Mm-hmm.
that's also the reason why I'm not sure how many people switch for Worlds. So on one hand, I'm like the people going to Worlds have probably practiced a lot of games, and that's the reason that I might be sort of maybe they'll switch to Iceland because they have so much practice now. They might just try. But if they can't get the practice in, I'm pretty sure people just stay to their old decks because the meta hasn't changed that much, and I don't think Icelander is new to the meta or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, her deck got a little bit better, the players got a little bit better, but it's not a completely different um, meta beast or anything. It's just a little bit more efficient than the old version. So I do feel it's easier for most people to just take their old deck, switch it so they know how to play into the new Icelander instead of switching to Icelander themselves. And if they switch to Icelander, they just need to get a lot of reps in to actually know the deck for every matchup. Because Icelander is a deck that has a different game plan for nearly every hero, or at least every archetype. Whereas most aggro decks just run the same version of their deck every game, unless they're into Oldhim or something. So I do feel like that's why Dromai and Icelander are both really hard to play because you need like different play styles into different heroes.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you brought up Cranky Grandpa, so he's obviously doing very well right now. So how do you approach that matchup against him?
So I was scared to death going into nationals, looking into Oldhim. I didn't have a lot of practice against Oldhim yet because I don't have a lot of Oldhim players in my region.
Oh, you're a
But
lucky man.
I
You're a lucky man.
Yeah, well, call it lucky, but when you go to nationals, there are lot more people there, and then the Oldhim's will get pulled out. So, but my armories are a lot shorter than most people, I assume. But now I've had some more practice into Oldhim just before nationals, just to like get the practice in. And I actually think it's favorite. The Fi list with the Kadachis is just really good into setting up for the late game and keeping pressure. I always hear people talking about a combo version of a deck, and they're just like, "Oh, I play against all them. I'm going this full combo. I'm setting up. I'm playing 3 energy pots. I'm playing them all out, and then I need all 3 Art of Wars with the perfect red hands." And I'm just like, "Yeah, but what are you gonna do in between? Because he can also kill you. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
it's not just full fatigue Oldhim." But I feel this new 5 version is actually a deck that can keep up the pressure a little bit. So he needs to play defensive, or otherwise he'll leak too much. But at the same time, keep enough reds in your deck and keep your Art of Wars till later in the game, that you can actually like burst him down in the later turns.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the reasons that's easy to do is because of pouncing links. If you start, you can just put on the pressure instantly and put on the pouncing links combo, and he starts at 30, 34, 35 something ish, which is just a great start into an Oldhim. Or if you can't, you will just always have that pressure there. So if he doesn't block, you can always just search for the lava burst and come in with other 5, 6, 7 damage dependent on the chain link
Mm-hmm.
or on the combo line. So I feel that that Fi is actually doing really well into Oldhim, and I've actually had a lot of good games into him. I also think it's fun to play because you really need to set up that late game, but you can still play your hands as a Fi. Cards that really help with this are things like Enlightened Strike, just putting a card on the bottom that's useful later. Arsenal in your first Art of War and just waiting on the second, or waiting on like a good moment to just snap it in. I do run energy pots,
Mm-hmm.
not because I really need to play them, but if I have an action point left here or there, I'll just play it to make sure that I have the blizzard covered and everything, and that makes my pop of turn even better. So I just feel like that's a good matchup for Fi. I didn't expect it to be, but my experience nowadays actually that's a good matchup. It's hard to play. You do need to watch out for every single mechanic that Oldhim throws at you. You need to watch out for his ability, of course. Like just watch out for the ice ability. Even the earth one might be annoying when you have your 2 Kodachis left or something. You do need to watch out for the blizzards. Of course, wind as well for the frostbite. But I feel like Fi can play around it really well right now. Using Furnace as a reaction is one of my most fun things to do. He's going to use his Ice React to put my last card on the top of the deck, and then I pitch it for Furnace, and then I use the resource to do Kodachis, or to get a Phoenix Flame back from the graveyard, or do something else. So it's actually lost value for him instead of for me. So it's just, but they sound really easy to do, but because there are so many things you need to keep track of in that matchup, to do them all at the same time correctly is a lot harder. So you really need to practice the matchup, need to play it a couple times before it really clicks. But if it clicks, it's fun to do, and it's also, I think, really Fi favorite.
Nice. So you, yeah, I do have to say that the Ice React, right, losing the card, and I don't have a flame scale, so maybe that's why I'm struggling with it. But you were mentioning a lot about, kind of pitch stacking, for lack of a better term, right, with Fi. And that's something that I've been struggling with personally because of minnowism, or I should say belittle, right, and the tutor and then the shuffle. So
Maybe I've like I feel like there's a difference between pitch stacking and keeping a high red density.
okay, so you're just talking keeping your average up. Okay.
Yes, yeah, and when you play like the Art of Wars, you of course you could count out everything you're going to draw, and it would be amazing if you make this perfect hand. But as I said before, I just don't like looking for the most perfect turn because I feel that it's really hard to do in the first place. And second, it might get disrupted because of things he does, or because you need to keep the pressure on, or so that's why I personally don't really like the pitch stacking part in a Fi deck. I like to just keep the density high, think about what's in the deck, and especially when you do that big combo turn, you probably only have like 15 to 20 cards in the deck, and you know most of them. And you might have had some blues taken out already because you used them, like the energy potions, or you played them in between, because sometimes I attack with blue cards as well, just to get like another card out of their hand. So I think you just need to keep track of how many reds there are in the deck, and how many blues you've already played. What I like to do is keeping track of the enemy deck as well. So look how many blizzards he has played. If you've seen 2 to 3, and you think he's only running 2, then you should be fine. So that's also something nice to keep track of when you go for your combo turn. And then just have a high red density, and those Art of Wars will do enough, especially if you have 2 of them. You might draw into a card that you don't like, you'll just banish it and draw 2 other ones. So that should be alright, I feel. But I don't think the pitch stacking is a thing you can really easily pull off. You could try, of course. But I don't think you can do it consistently without having trouble of keeping pressure.
No, yeah, okay, that makes more sense. Yeah, because like I said, it's something you put something on the bottom, like you said, the Art of Wars. I mean, a double Art of War turn in Fi is backbreaking, right? So trying to make that happen, but yeah, fair enough. All right, so a couple questions then for you. You mentioned Kodachi, so I've been surprised a lot of the lists have not had both Emberblade and Kodachis. Why do you think that is? Where are you leaning on that?
Okay, so personally, I think Searing Emberblade is the better weapon. The reason I'm running Kodachis is because I'm not running too much Draconic. And I think I personally really dislike decks that are running both, because I feel the decks need to be different to make Kodachis better. I feel like Searing Emberblade is just on rate better because it's 2 for 3 and it helps getting a Phoenix Flame. So it might actually be 2 for 4, which is just really above rate, especially for a weapon. It's just getting close to Rosetta type stuff because it's a 3 in a 1 instance as well. But the negative side is you need a Draconic card to start it off with. And a lot of the Draconic cards to start off with are 3 attacks or 4 attacks that are not that great. Of course, Mounting Anger is an exception. I think Mounting Anger is one of the best cards in the deck, so I will always be running that one. Another negative side, you probably just need a blue every turn. While with the Kodachi build, you can really look into a build where you can start with Ravenous Rebels or Scar for Scars, while at the same time having those Kodachis only if you have the resource. If you don't have the resource, you don't need them. Well, with the Searing Emberblade, you actually just need the Searing Emberblade every turn to get the extra chain link, to get the Phoenix Flame, to get everything going off. If you don't play the Searing Emberblade, you're not getting the value. So I do feel like Searing Emberblade is really good if you run the Draconic line, if you go fully Draconic. But if you don't, I just think Kodachis are a good alternative, and you get a lot of benefits out of playing the Kodachis because you can pick other cards in the deck. In a vacuum, I feel Searing Emberblade is just better. Out of the vacuum, looking into your deck building options, Kodachis is better with more 4 attacks, more generic attacks, and normal ninja attacks, while Searing Emberblade is just really good with the Draconic line.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, and Kodachi's work in most of the cases in that deck, they only need a yellow pitch, right? Like even Assault the Wound will do it for you, right?
Yeah, Assault the Wound could work. I personally run just a lot of, or not a lot, but I personally just keep running blues because there are a lot of one costs in the deck as well. I personally started running Minnowism now, Red Minnowism, which I thought was a bit funny because I was always really against it. But in this new version, that's not that draconic focused. I like having one Red Minnowism. If I pitch a blue for Belittle, 2 Kodachis, and I don't need the blue anymore, so I don't need any resources, I'll just get the Red Minnowism. So I feel like that really works. You can, of course, pitch the yellow. We just talked about playing into Oldhim. Well, you can just pitch your Art of Wars. You don't have to be scared of it, especially at the start of the game, because the game will drag on, so you'll probably get them back anyway. So you don't have to worry about those. But yeah, you could definitely do it with just the yellow. And when the calling just ended, I was looking into the list with a lot of yellows that work with the Tiger Stripes really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think that's a good archetype. I'm not running it personally right now, but I do see the benefits of that list. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough. All right, other discussion. So mask versus, well, I guess they're both masks, but
Yeah.
momentum versus links.
I have the same problem, by the way. I always say mask for Mask of Momentum and links for bouncing links.
Right.
I don't know
Yeah.
where that comes from, but I feel like everyone has that problem. So yeah, I'm personally a big Mask of Momentum fan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to be honest, it has a little bit to do with the calling, I guess. Like when I played the calling, I felt like I was the only one running Mask of Momentum in the mirror. So that's a bit of sweet spot right now. But even besides that, I feel Mask of Momentum just keeps constant pressure. And if you can't use links effectively because just the turn doesn't present itself, it just feels really bad to afterwards block with it and be like, oh well, that was a bit of a waste. Well, with Mask of Momentum, you have the constant pressure, and if you then need to block with it, it had the pressure and the block.
Mm-hmm.
So you get both ways. Though I didn't say I run bouncing links in my sideboard. I do run it into Oldhim. That's the most used matchup. I think into Oldhim you kind of need to use links because, well, your Mask of Momentum is just not going to trigger. So he doesn't even have to be scared of it because he just doesn't care. He blocks it out automatically and it just doesn't do anything. And then Pouncing Links is a free 6 to 7 damage, dependent on Art of War and Tiger Stripes. It might proc on your Lava Burst. And I just feel like that's so strong that it's 7 damage starting on the table, or 6 at least, and I feel like that's really good. So I like links in specific matchups. Oldhim, I've been playing it into Icelander, though I'm not sure how confident I am into Icelander with links. I've been thinking about switching it back to Mask of Momentum, especially with now more the aggressive side of or more the value side of the Icelander. She doesn't really want to block with a lot of cards. She also likes to just play the Wounded Bulls and stuff. And if I can stop that a little bit by triggering the mask or presenting the mask trigger, then that may be better than links. But for now, I'm running bouncing links into that matchup as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I do need to say this is with the Kodachi Fi. I've seen that combo Fi that won the Battle Hardened, and I'm quite surprised how he just uses links a lot. I'm really looking into that list, and I'm really curious how it does into the aggro decks. I had the feeling that the combo 5 was a bit dead right now because you couldn't present enough damage without stubbies.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I've been wrong, so I'm really curious how that list performs. I haven't tried it myself yet, so I will definitely try it in the upcoming weeks to see how the links version of the deck runs. But for now, I'm really big on Mask of Momentum.
Yeah. I like that as well because it forces blocks, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it just does it consistently, so you don't need a specific hand or anything. It just keeps forcing the block. And if you then want to just throw it in to block yourself, then that's fine. It didn't cost you anything.
fair enough. All right, well, I think that's Dash. So can you outrace Dash? I think so, but Dash, she always seems to be like one of the top 8.
Okay, so it's a bit weird with Dash. So I've been playing Dash a bit myself after it won the calling. I don't know what calling it was. It won a calling at some point, and then I started looking into Dash as well. It was the Talishar build.
Mm-hmm.
And then
was that
I
Singapore or something like
yeah,
that?
it was
Yeah.
Singapore. Yeah, it was the week before Lille, and a friend of mine, Wouter, he did play a bit of Dash before, and I was still on Fi, and I just said, I think I can fatigue Dash, and he was just looking at me. He's like, "Ah, you're crazy, man. You can't fatigue Dash. You're Fi. You only have 2 blocks and everything." So we were just at one of the hotels in Lille, just before the pro tour, and we were just sitting at like a table having a beer, and I was just like, "Do you have Dash with you?" He's like, "Yeah, I have it with me." I'm like, "I'm gonna try to fatigue Dash." So we played it out. It was not even close. It was just the most easy fatigue I ever did. Only with 2 blocks. Of course, I took out my Art of Wars and I tucked in a couple 3 blocks. I had 3 Sink Belows in my sideboards at the time for Bravo, so I just threw them in as well. And I think I lived at like 12 HP or something, and he was out of deck. And I was just a bit like, okay, so Talishar Dash is not it. I think that has been confirmed. I think it's just easy to fatigue, not just for Fi, but for most decks. I feel if Fi can fatigue something, then every deck can fatigue something. So Talishar's not it. I do feel that combinations of pistol with induction chamber might actually push it a little bit further and make sure that you can't fatigue it because it just can keep the pistol running and use the pistol a little bit more. And when they notice that you're fatiguing, just use the chest piece a little bit less. And if you play Dash just at the right speed, and you just know when to push and when to just hold back a bit because you see the fatigue coming, then I feel Dash can be really good. But I also think that's really hard to read, which is quite weird because I feel Dash is a really easy deck to play mechanically, but just knowing when to push and when not to push is a lot harder. But I do think Dash has a place, of course. Um, though with the pouncing links, there might be 5 players that just race it. I'm not sure, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
it's definitely a deck that's not bad, and it might surprise people.
yeah, I would think that's interesting about your Fi fatigue story. I would have thought that Fi would have just had to go boots and try to race. Interesting.
But that was the thing because Singapore happened, and no one actually tried playing against Dash that much lately. Like a lot of people, she was not on the radar for a lot of people. And when you look in the matchup, you're just like, you just need to race it. And of course, Dash might win the race, but you can definitely not fatigue it, right? Like no one was actually like, yeah, a bit harsh, but dumb enough to try. And then I was like, oh, I'll just give it a shot. Like just counting cards, it should be fine. Dash can only attack 30 times stop, and then, well, if you just block with everything, you have 60 cards to block with. So let's see who wins.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I think the beauty of Dash right now is that it's so flexible with just a few sideboard cards, right? They can completely switch their strategy for if they're racing or if they're going tanky for like Oldhim or something like that. I think it's really cool.
And that's also the reason I feel Dash is never bad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there will ever be a meta where Dash is the worst hero in the meta, because she always can just switch their build up a bit with her sideboard and just have good matchups just out of that. So
All right. Well, so you already kind of gave us your prediction, but so what's your official prediction? We'll do two. What's your prediction for what wins Worlds, and then what's your prediction for what wins the calling at Worlds weekend?
yeah, so my prediction for Worlds is Icelander.
Mm-hmm.
I did already say it. I'm not fully sold on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Icelander. It's a bit weird because it's such a spread out format with like the draft and the blitz, and so I'm not sure how big CC will be a part of it. Of course, it's the top 8 and it has like a lot of rounds in the Swiss as well, but it's not just CC. Therefore, I think I want to bet on players more than on decks. I
That
wouldn't be
seems
surprised
reasonable.
if Michael Hamilton wins the with Worlds. Um, just seeing how good he is at literally every format of the game. So that's where my money is. And if he plays Icelander, well, both bets align. So for the calling, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Fi.
Mm-hmm.
I do think Fi might be actually winning the calling. Fi has been picking up some battle hardens here and there, and just doing a lot of top eights in the nationals, winning some nationals even, I believe. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Fi wins the calling again. And I'm really curious what type of Fi wins it. I don't think it's the Fi I'm running right now. I don't think it's the 4 attack Fi from the UK nationals, though I do think it's a good deck. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a weird combo Fi deck that would win a calling.
Fair enough. And then, and
What are your
actually,
predictions, if I can ask?
I think probably Oldhim wins the calling. I think
Hmm.
the what will depend on that though is how many of the player right. What's going to be interesting is who drops from Worlds to go plays in the calling. Right, that'll
Yeah.
really change a lot. So we'll see how that goes, and then our players making changes based for their like players showing up to the calling. Are they making changes like the night before based on what's going on at Worlds? Probably not, because you got to travel with your stuff, but maybe. So we'll see how that plays out. My bold prediction though is that we will see Oldhim be the standout winner of Blitz. That's my hot take.
I wouldn't be
Of the Blitz
surprised now.
fans. You would be
Uh,
surprised?
I wouldn't.
Oh,
No, I
okay.
wouldn't be surprised. I actually think it was fun to see that when Crown of Seeds got banned, everyone took their hands off Oldhim and were just like, "Nah, that's a bad deck now." But I feel Oldhim has never been bad in Blitz. Like he's been top meta every single time. Uh, I do like to add that Icelander is a lot stronger without Stormstriders than I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the Stormstriders ban was of course for Kano, but I thought also Icelander would really be hurt from it. But I have some Icelander players in my area, and I wouldn't be surprised if Iceland is actually like the winner in Blitz together with Oldhim. Like it's both the ice heroes that are definitely going to be really strong right now.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it would be Fi, but then they banned bouncing links in Blitz, so not anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we will see. I suspect a lot of players at Worlds are going to show up with the same hero for both of their formats, just so they don't have to pivot. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how people play that. But you could very well show up with Oldhim and just play Oldhim in both formats all weekend, and
Same as Icelander.
yeah,
Yeah,
right, and do quite well.
definitely.
So as opposed to showing up like say you want to play Dash at Worlds or something, you might not want to play. Well, actually, Dash I suppose you could do too, right? You just have to go
Definitely
boosty
works.
boost versus control or whatever. So actually, that one's fair too. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I do suspect that the Blitz meta will be a lot more settled. I feel that if you take Dash, for example, into CC, that there's a lot you can do with your sideboard, and you lose out on that into the Blitz format,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore I think it will just not do as great in Blitz. I
Mm-hmm.
just feel like it in Blitz is way more set in stone that some heroes are better than others, while in CC you could have some secret tech here and there to surprise people, just to come out of nowhere and win matchups that you normally shouldn't win. And I don't think that's really possible into Blitz. So I do expect that the Blitz heroes are really set in stone, while the CC heroes can go a lot further, like a lot more variety and a lot more different heroes and sideboards and everything.
Yep, I think that's a fair take. But we will find out in what less than 2 weeks. We will find out. Well,
It's surprisingly close, yeah.
I know I am flying out to Denver in like 2 days, and then I basically have no time, and it's like here. So it's kind of crazy. We've been talking about it forever, and it's finally here. So
Well, have a lot of fun.
yeah,
Like, it's really cool that you're going. A little bit jealous, not gonna lie, but I can imagine that's really cool for you, and I hope you do well.
yep. Well, we
Would be
we
cool.
will see. I'm headed into Worlds looking for fun. Battle Denver.
Mm.
I want to do a little better in Denver. I don't expect like a top 8 or anything, but I would like to have a good weekend in Denver when I go to Worlds. I'm just there for fun, so we'll see how that goes. But either way, get to meet everybody, and it's just too close to me to not go. So
No, of course, and it's just just really cool to be at the first world championship, right?
Yep,
That's just
absolutely.
such an honor to be there. Like it's really cool.
Cool. And to clarify for the internet, I am not going to the Worlds tournament. I'm going to Worlds weekend, just to clarify.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, but still, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
you're there, right? Like it
yeah,
counts.
yeah. So, all right, man. Well, any parting shots or shout outs you want to give before we wrap this up?
So my friend Wouter's actually going to the World Championship, and I wish him the best of luck. Like I hope he's doing well. He did well on the Pro Tour. I think he's even more prepared right now. So I hope he's going to do well. Like
Awesome.
I'm cheering from here. So
Well, good luck. Good luck. It's you said Walter.
Wouter, yeah.
Walter. Okay. Well, good luck, man. You got the Dice Commando bump. There you go. So, all right, man. Well, thanks for making time in the middle of the week. I really do appreciate it. It's always good to talk Fi with you and get your take on stuff. And I don't know, if nothing else, say it with me, man. Go Commando.
Go Commando.